Hey, good morning. It's Ken Walls. Welcome to Breakthrough Walls. I am so excited to have LaDawn Townsend on today. She is the CEO of a company called the Voss Group, and I'm sure we're going to extract a lot of information about that out of her, as well as some other exciting things, the ups and downs of being an entrepreneur and you know, just all around living life. So without any further from me, I want to welcome LaDawn to the show. LaDawn, welcome and thank you for being a guest.
Oh, Ken, thank you so much for having me here.
Oh, it's my pleasure, my honor. So, you know, I created this show a couple of months ago to, you know, I'll be 50 years old next month, and which blows my mind. I only look 20. So I'm just kidding.
Definitely.
But,
no, I'm right there with you. Not at 50.
Yeah. Well, it just blows me away. It seems like yesterday I was, you know, running around playing baseball and whatnot. But it goes so fast, and I think, you know, I've done a lot of amazing things in life, and I'm sure you have as well. And I wanted to create a show to help people have a breakthrough. And my brilliant wife, who's the marketing genius, says, how about you do Breakthrough Walls? And I go, wow, that's a great idea. That's my last name. And
I love that.
Yeah. So I created this show to help people have a breakthrough. And we've all been through the messes of life, and you know, you can't get to where you are in life by not having been knocked down a couple of times here and there, right?
Yep.
So from the perspective of starting out, I'd really like for people to get to know who you are, and I guess that would begin with, where did it all begin for you? Where were you born and raised?
So I come from Southern California.
Oh.
Pretty, can't get worse than that, right? It's good weather, 363 days a year. And so my parents, I come from a family of entrepreneurs. My parents are from deep South Texas. And all I remember is growing up is we always worked alongside the business. So that was our weekends, that was our summers. As early as the age of 8, I was a cashier for the business. And we did many different things. And, you know, even though we were from Southern California, my dad was huge into rodeos and horses. So we had a ranch. So we were a little bit odd when we had our boots and our cowboy hats, you know, in Los Angeles. But, you know, it really taught me such a strong work ethic and how to enjoy life and how to grow. So I always say my childhood was like a PhD getting me ready for business.
Wow. So it sounds like you had a good childhood.
Yeah, you know, we, you know, of course, nothing is ever perfect, but one of the things looking back as an adult now, our parents were wanting to instill in us life skills to help us. And, you know, I always tell the story of, I didn't know that the word can't was actually a real word till I was 12. My English teacher had to actually point it out to me because my dad really drilled that into us, that there's really no such thing as can't or try. You just do. And so it's a great mindset to have. You have to learn how to balance it a little bit as well. But yeah, it was the founding ground for what I do now.
So you grew up in I mean, that was your whole childhood, was Southern Cal?
Yep. That was it.
And so you went to grade school and middle school and high school, and did you end up going to college?
So funny story about college. I did. I tried to go to college, and the reason I say try is I got into corporate America very early. I think got out of it right out of high school. I don't think I was even 18 at the time. And so the thing was to go to school to get a good degree. And I remember a professor telling me, well, you go to school to get this degree so you can earn good money. And at the time, when you're in your early 20s, I was earning quote unquote good money because I had already got into corporate America. I started scaling the ladder really quickly. I was managing teams of people. So I was earning that good salary. And I don't share that to brag. I share that as our life experience prepares us for what we need in our business, prepares us for what we need. And so I just made the decision one day I wasn't going to do college anymore. And is it a risk? Yes. Is it for everyone? No. But I don't think college is for everyone either. Right. You know, there's certain things you want to learn, but I always knew that I was going to have my own business. I just had to figure out how to make it all work.
Wow. So you were in college and you realized you were probably making more than the professor teaching you. I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. But I've heard that, you know, especially on this show, it's a common theme among entrepreneurs that you know, they realize at some point early on that, you know, like college is, you know, I mean, hey, I don't fault anybody. I didn't even graduate high school. So I'm like, you know, I'm just a dumb, lucky guy, I guess. But, you know, with the college thing, so how were you in for a couple of years? How long?
Yeah, so I bounced around for a few years. You know, I would take a few semesters, I would leave. I just am not a school person. Like, as much as I do strategy and get into the weeds of details, like, I'm over it at some degree. It's just not my thing. And I remember even being in high school, I was like, what is this about? Because I come from entrepreneur parents. Right. So when they're teaching you about money, about, you know, mindset, and, you know, like our parents, my dad would have meetings at the house. And so it was normal for us, you know, to be serving these corporate CEOs like dinner at our table and learning and sitting in and answering phone calls and taking meeting minutes. I mean, it's not the typical childhood, I know, but that was just normal. So then I go to high school and I'm like, this is stupid. Like, I never understood some of the lame stuff people go through. I'm from California, so I say lame. And so I was really over it. And so I was in school and I would try, and all of that, me going back and forth to college for years, I was just running from my destiny. I was really running from my own self-worth. Yeah. And when I finally got clear on who I was, then I just took off from there.
Yeah. So you left college. You said this isn't for me. Did you stay in Southern California?
I did. I stayed up into Southern California until about 7 years ago.
Oh, wow.
Where, I had a journey that took me up and down the East Coast. So, the catalyst for me about 7 years ago is I just looked at my life, and you know when things look really good on the outside, but in all honesty, I was at a huge state of depression because I just thought, is this it? Is this it? Like, I was in my mid 30s and
that was cute. I like that.
Sorry for those that thought I was 22. Sorry to disappoint you. But I just remember being so bored, not even bored. It was a sadness. Like, you know, life looked perfect. I was an executive. I had a really good job. I mean, you're in California. You know, I go to church on the weekends. I see my family and friends. And I remember just saying, but is this it? Is this all of it? I wanted something more. I didn't know what the more was. I was also battling, you know, becoming healthy again and losing weight and all of that journey. And I remember just one day, and I share this not to offend anyone, I remember just crying out and asking God, I need something different. I don't know what the road is, but I'm so open for it. And then everything changed within just a short amount of time. I got a job offer from a Fortune 100 bank that let me work from home. So I was like, I'm out of here. Wow. I don't have to stay in California. So over the next few years, I lived up and down the East Coast, and it was the best thing for me, Ken, because some of us come from a background where it's just one thing, right? It's a box. And so when I lived in different cities and states and learned and met different people and figured out what my skill set was, and I wanted to know, what did I want to do with my life and enjoy with my life? Right. That was really the biggest piece of it. And so I went through all of that for a few years. And then in 2014, I got the call that nobody wants to get, where my bosses told me, hey, we were just let go. The team was just let go, and we have to let you go.
Oh, God.
Yeah, but I knew that that was a moment for me because 3 days before, I'm really clear on intuition, especially being driven divinely by what you're supposed to do. And I share that not from a woo-woo place, but I think we all were built for a purpose and a reason, and no one is here by mistake. And sometimes we don't tap into our purpose to really let that flow forward because in your purpose, in your intuition, even as men, you have it as well. It's this guiding like channel to tell you what's next. Like even as I started my business, I don't know everything, but I go through and figure it out. And I remember when that moment happened 3 days before, I was listening to the news in the morning. You know, you're getting your coffee, trying to figure stuff out for the day. And the story of a woman came on that had just been laid off. Her story was just like mine. She was an executive. She was laid off. She took her severance and built her business and never had to go back to work. And I just remember saying, if I get that opportunity, I would run with it. And 3 days later, it happened. And so my bosses were a little concerned because I was like, great. I didn't even know I get a check. I didn't know anything about unemployment, about severance. I didn't know any of that stuff. Right. And so they said, no, you get a severance. I'm like, cool. Like, where is it?
Yeah, show me the money.
Show me the money. And so they were a little concerned, but I knew that that was my moment because I was tired of the political BS. I was tired of having to do chess moves to get in front of people and to get your project. Because the work that we did is we fixed companies. So we would come in to a department and say, I know that you think you're all running on all cylinders, but if we pull back the curtain, it's a hot mess. Yeah. So, talking to a senior executive, it's not always the best thing to do. So I learned that skill. And so what happened from there, I was happy-go-lucky. I thought, well, I was an executive in corporate America. This business thing is a no-brainer.
Right.
And I learned very quickly the next year was what I call the year of everything you should not do as a business owner.
Yeah, I've had a couple of those years.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It was a rough year. But it was also a year that taught me a lot about what I'm really supposed to do. Because at the time I was in a network marketing company, loved it, but I was hiding behind so many different things. And it wasn't until like 6 months in, like nothing was clicking, that I really just sat still for a moment. And the instruction was, you need to build a business from the ground up. Like it's the same, the things I do now, I doodled this in a notebook 15 years ago. Yeah. It was always there, but I was so scared because I don't know how to do that. And I just invested thousands of dollars into this other thing and I got to make it work. And that's a lesson for people. Like, yes, you invest in things, but don't allow your pride to not let you shift directions that can then make you profitable.
Amen.
And so when I made that shift, I said, okay, the CEO stepped in, not the creative entrepreneur, wants to do everything. And the CEO said, we make money.
Right. Right.
How do we make money? And what I did is the only thing, Ken, that I could get to make money because my credit was shot at that time. People wouldn't loan me a pen. It was bad. And it's real because a lot of the times we hear and see the success, the flashiness, but behind the scenes of rebuilding yourself. And for those of you that are like, oh, I have a degree or I've been with my company X amount of years. My leader had been with the company 25 years, was escorted out by security. Yeah. People who had PhDs fired in a blink of an eye. So there's really no loyalty within that organization unless you're in a rare organization that is committed and grows and isn't using layoffs as sort of a way to balance their bottom line. Yeah. And so I knew I needed to learn skills, how to build the business. Yeah. And I was back in California, licking my wounds a little bit. Yeah. And I said, you know what? I could hire myself out. Someone told me, why don't you be a consultant? I had no idea what that meant. I just knew consultants get benefits and I was a little scared. So I'm in California and I packed up my things. I had a little bit of savings and a lot of faith and I moved to Austin, Texas. Wow. Determined to get a job. Within the first week I got a job and it was really amazing. I was able to start investing in myself and in my business. I had the amazing opportunity to work at Apple as one of their global project managers. Wow. So a lot of the products you see, we helped to get that out to market. I supported Singapore, UK, Canada, the States. And so I learned all of these skills about working in different countries and working at such level of excellence that I didn't even know existed. And it also helped me to rebuild up my own self-esteem because I had taken a lot of knocks. You know, it's easy, one, to rebuild yourself financially, and two, to do it in your later years, you know, 30 plus. And so but I just had to let go of the ego because I knew there'd be a moment where I would have my own business. I could travel. I could have the life I want, because after I got laid off, I had one mission. I was never going to be the woman that did not have financial options ever again in life. The layoff didn't piss me off so much of I was laid off. It was my spending stopped. Like I couldn't travel the way I wanted. I couldn't go and do things I wanted to do. And so I was like, this is not how I want to live. And so from there, I worked 70, 80-hour weeks on the job. I worked 40 hours every week in my business. You know, and I didn't know how to do all the marketing and advertising. All I knew is how to get on the phone and talk to people, because that's what my dad and my mom taught me.
Well, let me ask you this. Let's back up a lot. Way back. Let's go way back, because I want to, you know, again, I like kind of digging in, and I love, you know, people like Grant Cardone, and I've studied Deepak Chopra, Dr. Wayne Dyer, Louise Hay, you know, some just amazing spiritual teachers and business rock stars, and you know, I find it interesting. I think there's always something, either an event, multiple events, or people from childhood that kind of form who we become as adults, right? Now, I know I have two daughters, a 12-year-old and an 8-year-old, and so I know that we all have our own individual personalities. I know that. So, but like, you know, when it comes to, you look back at your childhood from early on and think about and share, if you would, what do you feel like the biggest influences as a child were that made you who you are today and who you're still becoming?
I think the biggest influence was, even though my family, we lived in the suburbs and my folks had their own business, we had to work for what we wanted, and it wasn't handed to us. And I think for me, the biggest lesson was that anything you want can happen for you, but you got to do the work.
Right.
And B, the mindset of the world system and how people see rules isn't the way that you have to see them.
Amen to that.
Meaning, like I would see my parents close deals, and then I would see my friends' parents, they're going to work 8 to 5. And I was like, what is this 8 to, like, I didn't understand that. I remember even walking through our suburb, and I was like, what's with the suburb stuff? Like, you know, like like everything was the same, and no offense to people that live in that, but it was at a very early age where I understood the concept that life can be whatever you want it to be.
Now, wait, but where did you, okay, so I hear you.
Yeah.
But and I totally agree with you, like totally. But how did you learn that? Who taught that to you? Did you learn that by watching, or did somebody sit you down like your dad or your mom and say, you can have and do and be anything that you want?
Got it. So I think it was both from my parents.
Okay.
I remember one time being in, I think it was junior high or something like that. And as girls, like, we're always comparing, and I always thought the comparing stuff was stupid. Like, I was an old soul kid, so it was really hard for me to connect with kids because I would roll my eyes all the time. Yeah. Because in my thinking, I'm just like, well, that's childish. And they're like, you're 9. Like, what do you mean that's childish? And I just remember one time asking my mom, and I don't think I've ever shared this with anyone, Ken, so I'll share it with you. And all of the, you know, like, I grew up in a predominantly non-minority school. all my whole life. And I was cool with that because we were brought up of it doesn't matter what someone looks like. It's really your character. Yeah. So that was just normal for us. Right. And I remember one time being at school and for the first time I was different. And I didn't really get what that meant, that I was different.
Yeah.
And I remember I went home and I asked my mom, I was like, am I pretty? Am I pretty? And what she told me, she said, do you believe it? And I was like, well, yeah. I was like, well, I don't know. Should I believe it? And in that moment, she was teaching me about what do you believe about yourself? Because what I tell you could be one thing.
Wow.
But even if I tell you, if you don't believe it for yourself, it's not going to matter.
Holy crap.
I was like, just tell me because I'm 12 and the girls at school are saying all this. And it's so funny, I'm different with my hair. I went on experiences of trying to do my hair, my blonde friends did their hair, and it was not the same situation. So I had to learn about myself. So I had that. And then my dad was so into nature and horses. And we did everything. We pitched hay. I trained for barrel racing, which I absolutely love.
My wife's a champion dressage rider.
Oh, love it. I absolutely love it. You put me on a horse, I'm happy any day of the week. If I could just be on a ranch,
my God, you sound exactly like my wife.
I'd be so done. Like, I've had the whole thing, the chaps, the boots, the hat, like the buckle. Like, my dad was like 6'2", you know, big hat, like the buckle.
Yeah.
It was like he had the Ford pickup with the chicks on the back.
I love it. Holy crap.
I'm like, we live in LA. Like, what is this?
Yeah.
So I remember my dad when we would, you know, just go out and work with the horses and work with the animals, and we worked with and it wasn't like work. It was just living. And I remember in those formative years of being a teen and a preteen and like always by his side, like trying to learn different things and just watching how he would handle situations and talking to people and handle the animals and being patient, but being firm, and when to be boisterous, when not to be boisterous. My dad didn't really have to teach me, say all those things. I saw it by watching him, and no one's perfect, right? Like none of us are, but I was able to see those traits. And I just remember thinking, look at all that we've been blessed with and have, because they go in and do the work.
Right.
And so for me, I learned, and I think it was a little different because at the same time, there's this whole thing in society about as women, how you're supposed to be. Like, you're not supposed to be aggressive, or you're supposed to be, you know, because at the same time, my parents are from deep South Texas. So, you know, we had the, you know, be ladylike, be this. Yeah. I had a huge religious upbringing, you know, be humble, money's bad. I'm like, this all is like, makes no sense to me.
Right.
Because inside, all I knew was I want to live a big life, and it's going to take money.
Yeah.
So when I got into high school, I remember people asking me, what do you want to do when you graduate? I was like, I don't know. I want to travel and have money. Like, that's even at that age. Now, the reason I could have earned that quicker was an entrepreneur, but I didn't know that. They were like, oh, you need to get into corporate and become like a manager. Yeah. So that's the road I pathed, but it still didn't fit. And I remember my folks would tease me. They were like, you know, I would get up before my alarm clock did. They were like, you were so faithful to that job. When are you going to have your own business? And, but I was fearful too. I was really afraid because as entrepreneurs, we'd have moments of really nice and moments of really not. Yeah. And I didn't want to go through that. I didn't want to have the ups and downs about the money, but that's because I had to learn my own money story. But I think it's all of that. It's observing. It's not always, you learn the biggest lessons when you watch other people. Like when I watch you, when I first met you at GrowthCon, I think it was last year.
Yeah.
And you could just tell by your presence, and you meet those people because there's always people trying to do things. But I always say, watch the ones that are just consistent and see who they are outside of the limelight, because that's the consistency. And I learned that very early on. I also learned how to really have an instinct about people and let that guide me and and to be able to ask the questions. But I also, believe it or not, I used to be really, really reserved. Like, I didn't like to talk to people. Like, I did, like, as a kid.
You?
Nope, I don't want to talk to anyone. it was really hard for me because I was a little not shy. I was just a little reserved. I just didn't know how to interact.
Yeah.
And you have to understand, I was put into boardroom meetings at like preteen age, like taking notes and sitting there with my folks and, meeting celebrities and politicians and people my folks did business with. But it was training. I see what they were doing.
Yeah.
And they also had an extremely high standard. It was, doesn't exist. It's not a real word. Okay. So I didn't say the word for the longest time. So that was a lot of what I think helped to form me.
I think it appears to me, and we're a lot alike, by the way.
That's a good thing. I like that.
Well, I've been through the same thing, not feeling like I fit in, knowing that, I'll tell you, a book I read many years ago now, called The Four Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz.
I've heard about that book.
Well, he talks about in the very beginning of the book, he talks about the programming of the human and how we're all programmed by parents and teachers and other people. We kind of like go through life believe like political beliefs or whatever, right? It's because of somebody else. And it's like, I can remember the moment as an adult where I'm like, oh my God, I can think for myself. What?
Yeah.
Wait a minute. You mean I don't have to like follow this? I can like, and I can just remember, and I'm sure you can relate to that moment of overwhelming joy and happiness that like, oh my God, it's not all predestined. Like I actually get to choose. So,
I actually had that moment when actually getting into a job and starting to get your first paycheck.
Yeah.
So all I knew up to that point was like this high standard and this level of perfection, which in corporate, why I excelled so quickly is because I was sort of like a machine a little bit because there was no room for error. And so the jobs like that. But I remember one day, I think I was in my mid-20s, I was so in debt. It was ridiculous. Like I was in debt. I wasn't healthy. And I said, this has to be tied. I don't know what this means. But also, as I was growing up, we never really talked about money. Money was always, and that's why I talk about this so much with my clients, money is the driving force of everything. And the only thing I remember learning about money is that, you get money, it goes out, we need this. If we don't have it, there's strife, there's frustration. And it just was this horrible energy and anger. And so when I got into a job, what happens? You start buying more stuff, then you're in debt, then you're overextended. And I just remember the feeling of there has to be a way to get out of this. I just didn't know because no one was really talking about the healthy part of money. So when I wrapped my head around it, I've tried everything the guru said. I stopped eating out for lunch for 2 years. I stopped doing Starbucks. Ken, I'm so embarrassed to talk about this. I even would measure the air pressure in my tires because I read an article somewhere that helps you extend your gas mileage. I did it. No shame over here.
My Grant Cardone's head would explode right now.
It would. But, oh my gosh, I hope he never hears this. But here's what happened.
He watches every single show. You're done.
So here's what happened. One day, I woke up and said, I don't want to be the woman that has to measure her air tire. One, it messes up my nails. And then two, I want to go to Starbucks.
Right.
I want to go to lunch. And I don't just want to go to a little lunch. I want to go to the Four Seasons lunch.
Amen.
And I remember one day after the layoff, I was rebuilding myself and I had the no Starbucks rule. I may have had $7 to my name.
Yeah.
And I went into Starbucks and I ordered like a $3 latte and it was like, it would have been like 30,000 to me. I was so afraid.
Oh, I know.
I sat there and I just enjoyed the moment.
Yeah.
And that's when it started to shift for me about money. And I made a decision of I'm not going to be a slave to money anymore. I will be the master of money and I'm going to figure this money story thing out.
I love it.
Yeah.
I had a client a long time ago. This was a long time ago, 16, 15 years ago probably. I was, doing what I do now, website development and stuff. and he says, I said, man, he's like, how's it going? I said, I'm just struggling. I can't figure this crap out, and he says, do you have $5? And I go, yeah, not a whole lot more than that. He goes, good, take it and go get some ice cream. Mm-hmm. I go, what? He goes, my grandparents, if they owned a business, and they always said, when we get down to our last $5, we're all going to get ice cream. And it's like, because it's like people think that it's all this, just you own a business no, man.
No, it's not like that. And I talk to people about it. I'm like, look, especially if you're an employee by day and a CEO by night, right? We've all lived those two worlds. Yeah. For you to say, I can't invest in this in order to get the plan to leave the job, when you are a business owner, the same thing comes up, right? Can we live this all the time? Like you need to hire someone, a piece of equipment goes down. We were doing some printing for one of our clients the other day and nothing went right with the equipment. I mean, we had to go and outsource it. I wasn't expecting to pay that, but it just happens. And so it's the mindset about money. There is no perfect model. It's not, I'm going to leap when I get the money. Like I didn't want to start my business years ago until, hold on to your socks, I had this rule where I was like, I need 3 years worth of savings before I even think about leaving my job. So here's the deal. I'm not doing Starbucks. I'm doing packed lunches. I mean, I can cook, so it was pretty nice, but it's still packed lunches. Yeah. I'm measuring my air pressure in my tires. I'm trying to save money. I'm not going to the hair salon. I'm doing all this other stuff. And how in the world am I going to save 3 years worth of income off of the one income that's not paying all the bills? It's not that, I love how Grant says, it's not that you have this debt problem. You have an income problem.
Amen.
So I had to figure out, make some more money. And I unapologetically talk about money because here's the deal. We all live with money. We are in a world where you need money. Third world countries, you go talk to them about needing 5 shekels to go and get food for the day. They understand money. Yep. But I truly believe that 98% of the world is a total slave to money and not the master of the money. And here's the darkness in that is that you have the full potential, not tomorrow, not next week, right now, to just say, I'm done with the struggle. What does the struggle look like? Don't tell me you're in debt and you're going to buy all the new Apple equipment because you're minimum $2,000 in, right?
Yeah.
So if you really want to make a change, when I moved to Austin, the reason I did that is one, I wanted to have a certain lifestyle, but I wanted to invest in my business. 50% of my paycheck every month for 2 years went into my business.
Wow.
Now that's commitment.
Yep.
So I can talk openly about it because I came from baling hay and learning how to ride horses and being in the corporate job and being in debt to where you're 6 figures and can't even afford a Starbucks. Yeah. And then I had to build my business after it. So there's just no excuses. I think that's another big piece of what's really instilled within me is I don't believe in excuses. Please don't tell me you can't.
And I agree. I've never understood and this is no offense to you or anyone else, but I've never understood being able to have a job and own a business. So I've always been like, okay, what I need to do is I need to figure out how to live on less while I get started.
There you go.
But see, I have this unlimited mindset. Like I know there is so much abundance out there that I can't even count it all. Like there's no way I could accumulate all the wealth in the world, and that's a lot. So I look at it like I've always like I got fired from the last job I had because the sales manager was a pothead and smoking dope in a company. It keeps doing that. I don't understand. I'll tell you what's going on. I think they have upgraded the internet in this area to all this digital stuff. And the last couple of days, it's been so volatile, it's insane. But go ahead. I'm sorry. What'd you do?
That's okay. So I knew how to knock on the doors. I didn't even know that was cold calling. We just did that growing up. So that's all I knew was to network, talk about what you do, ask for the money. And so, but what happens for a lot of people, and I'm going to say this with love, is we get addicted to the paycheck.
Yep.
even if you're not earning six figures, and let's be real, six figures is really not that much, right?
It's
Like
not.
after taxes. Like, I don't understand. As a single person, I struggled. I don't know how a family does that. And that's and the reason I'm talking boldly about this is because you got to get uncomfortable in your current financial situation, because it is a myth that the job is a security. The only security that you have is getting your own thing, learning how to pitch it, and then taking care of those customers so well that they become raving fans for you, and getting over your own ego. I did a call the other day talking about ego is blocking your cash flow. Because a lot of, especially those that are making the transition, it's like, oh, I want everything perfect. Or, LaDawn, I see you have all these different lanes of things in your business set up. Yeah, dude, but that was 4 years later. That didn't come overnight. Like, I really had to learn that piece of it. So it's the addiction to whatever you think is comfortable. It's the addiction to the payroll. I've even had people say, I can't leave my job because of the benefits. Go get your own stinking benefits. And all that is it's really excuses. It's just excuses to delay your destiny, to delay your future. And here's what I'll tell you. I was warned intuitively years before that I needed to get my business together. So I played around. I would spend hours working on the website, never even did market research to find out what people needed. And so if I would have taken the right steps beforehand when I got laid off, it would have been a totally different journey for me. But I'm glad that the journey went the way it did, because I had to address some things. I had to address my mindset around money. I had to address the perfection that I was raised as a kid to say, look, this isn't helping me. This is really a stress to me. I had to learn how to be me in my own faith, in my own business, in my own skin, and to really stand in that. And that's what really helped me with everything. But for those that, you just have to take the leap and do it. I wish I could tell people, even in your own business, like, we're about to scale up and knees knocking. I'm like, I can't believe we're doing this. But it has to be done in order to scale. If I want to serve the type of clients I want, if I want to pitch to the type of clients that I want to, then I've got to be able to scale. And it's not, I'll do it when the money shows up. You leap, and then the net will appear. I firmly believe that God wants us to put skin in the game.
Yep.
He wants to see, do you trust me enough that I'm going to provide in this big way? Or are you going to be so enslaved to money and your own fear and not take the step? Because when my days are done, I want to be able to say and look back on my life and say, I did that thing. I did it to the hilt and enjoy my life.
LaDawn, that is so spot on. And for me, again, like, if I don't know how anybody, it's like, how do you have a successful relationship with a significant other if you're part of the way in it?
Exactly.
Like, either go all in or don't go at all. Like, for real. Like, you can't. Well, I'll tell you a real quick story. My attorney is one of my best friends, and I had gotten into, I had this company, and it was growing and blossoming and flourishing, and then I got into this MLM. Somebody convinced me to do this thing, and I started oh my God, you can make some crazy money with this thing. And I'm like, and it's just all on autopilot after you get 400 people signed up. So wow, and, and I'm like, this is great, and we can sail the 7 seas. And so I really started putting a lot of energy into that. Well, that picture was painted a lot brighter than it actually was in reality, right? Yeah. So my attorney calls me up and hey, what are you doing? I said, oh God, I can't make payroll. He's like, what? And I go, I can't. Things are bad, man. And he goes, dude, meet me for dinner tonight. And I said, I can't afford it. And he says, I'll meet me for dinner. So I met him for dinner and sit down, and he's like, so what are you doing? And I told him about this MLM thing, right? And I go, and I'm still doing the other thing too. And he's like, dude, you cannot have a, what's the word? I'm drawing a blank.
You can't serve two masters.
That's what he said. what's it called? Oh, you can't have a mistress. He said, you
Ooh.
cannot have a mistress. I go,
Right.
what, dude, what are you talking about? I don't have a mistress. I'm happily married. He goes, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about your business. You're cheating on your business.
There you go.
But dude, this is a pretty big opportunity. He goes, really? You've been doing it for how long? I go, I don't know, a few months. And he goes, and now you're losing your rear end. You have a mistress. You need to get rid of her. I'm not saying, don't use their product, but I'm saying that's not your main thing. You got
there. You go.
Grant
yes.
says it, right? Keep the main thing the main thing. You got to get focused on one thing, and so. Right? And I'm sure you preach that. I'm sure you do. But
I do. You got to talk to people about it, because here's what happens is, you get to a point in your business where you're growing, and then what starts to happen? Oh, I want to go volunteer in a country for 6 months that has no internet, and I want to give to charity, and I want to start a clothing line, and I want to branch off and do this. Oh, and I want to have an e-commerce site. And I'm like, what's the direction?
Right.
Like, where are we going? Like, the Voss Group stands for Vision, Optimization, and Strategy. We start with vision. Where are you going? And so many business owners, especially those that what we call are our scale ramp ups, where you're at that 500,000 mark, you're hitting over $1 million. And really, like, I laugh. If we had a secret back door for our clients to come to, they probably do that, because we typically work with larger businesses that look all plush on the outside, but it's like falling apart, right? And so they bring us in where they're like, oh, there's just a little bit of smoke. And I'm like, it's a full-blown inferno in here.
Right.
And so there's this mindset to where you have to shift, and there's a way to scale, but there's a way to scale that makes sense to where you can have your business.
Right.
And that really gets, so you have to keep your eye on the main thing first. Always have that pumping. Always make sure that that's there. But we get so scattered with everything else, because what do we see? We see this mentor doing this. You don't know the system behind that to support it. If you're a team of 1 or even a team of 5, you need to scale the right way, because it's not always going to happen. And I had to learn, I don't know, Ken, if you went through this, but I used to never celebrate my small wins. I would have, I was always grinding, like, I got to do this. And I remember a coach one time told me, you're working this full-time job. I was up at 4 a.m. making cold calls to Ireland and the UK, because I didn't have time on my lunch or after work to do it. So I would get up and call there.
Wow.
But I was determined. I was so determined. And so one day I was just like, I'm feeling pressed. I had hit a wall. I really had hit a wall. And I was telling him everything I did. He said, when are you going to celebrate the fact of everything that you've done? Because it's not like when you reach your major goal, it's like, ta-da, I'm going to be a changed person. I'm going to celebrate. You change as a person on the way. And when you take moments to celebrate the small wins, now celebrate and keep going. I don't mean like start throwing a party and all you did was like a speck, right? You have to celebrate the small wins and then move forward. But I never used to do that. And so what happens? You're burnt out, stressed out. Nothing seems it. Your energy is all befungled when you're talking to people and they don't really know what you're trying to do, and you come across desperate. So you got to take moments to celebrate the small wins, but you have to be all in for your dream. Like how you said, you can't have a mistress on the side. For your business, what is the main thing? Like we drive in, what is the main thing that we do? What is the main thing that we work through? What is the main goal that we have? And that helps to feed everything else. So all the activity that people see that I do, it's still funneling back to the main thing. It may be different ligaments or whatever, but it's still funneling back to the same thing.
You can't have an auto repair business and in the back room you're trying to sell fruit baskets.
I come from LA. I've seen a lot of that.
But what's really in those baskets? So, but no, again, and I think that, and we're coming up to almost at the end of the hour, but I do want to bring out a couple of the other things, and that is like, what do you see? People get stuck, and that's what this show's about. And so when people get stuck and you see them stuck, and you know maybe they're a client, maybe they can't even afford to hire you, right? But they want to I get that all the time because I do consulting too, right?
I do too. It's the
right?
best compliment.
Like, hey,
So,
I just want to pick your brain.
because I don't think I can afford you. And you're like, yeah, that feels sort of good.
I know, right?
You probably
yeah.
can't figure it out.
I got 50 years in this brain. Like, that costs money. Like, you don't get to just pick my brain for free. But, like, you know, what's the biggest thing that you see people doing that keeps them stuck?
Oh, gosh. So I'm going to give it a title and then I'm going to break it down.
Okay.
It's a fear of selling.
Oh, yeah.
And the reason, now I say this very boldly because 7 months ago, I was so afraid of selling. Oh my God. Like I had the business for a few years. Just a few short years ago, I made a whole whopping $200 in 1 year.
Wow.
Because I was like, well, let me give away my services for free. Let me work with people. It was a fear of the sale. And when you dig into the fear of the sale, it's a fear of rejection because it's a fear of what other people think. So what you're really afraid of is you're afraid of really exposing just how powerful you are.
Wow.
And so for me, I remember in the course of just a few months, I think last year, 2 years ago, I had 4 different like experts that were making stupid money in their businesses tell me, you know, LaDawn, what is it that you do? And I said, well, I fix companies. And they're like, okay, well, why don't you do that? Because I was trying to do life coaching or something or business. I was business coaching, but everything seemed like a life coach in my advertisement.
Right.
And so I was still afraid to show up. I was still afraid to be me. And that's what I see people struggle with is that they're so worried about what would people think if I charge that? What would people think if I have my own business that's outside of the norm of what everyone's doing? What you're really saying is, I'm waiting for someone else to give me permission to live my life.
I gotta tell you, like you just helped me remember something. And you know, almost 16 years ago, I got sober, and I was sitting in these meetings of Alcoholics Anonymous 16 years ago. And I can remember looking around the rooms thinking, because like, you know, there's some famous people in those rooms, right?
Yeah.
And then there's Skid Row in there as well, and I was probably closer to Skid Row at that time. And so like, but I remember sitting there thinking, man, if these people really truly knew all the bad things and mistakes I've done and made, and if they really knew who I was, they wouldn't want me around, you know? Yeah. And then it was years later that I kind of realized everybody's sitting around doing that, not just in AA, but like everywhere, like everybody's feeling. And so it's like, dude, like we all make mistakes. Like, you know, it's the forgiveness of oneself for the screw ups and moving forward and saying, and overcoming what you're talking about, right? Yeah. Like just doing it.
And it's really showing up. You know, one of the pieces of my journey also has been my road to, I call it healthy living, because, you know, I had really let myself go when it came to, I was working, you know, in my early 20s, like 60-hour weeks. And then I was diagnosed with a metabolic condition. It's called PCOS. 1 in every 8 women in America have it. So for me, I got the bad part of it to where my body would work like a diabetic, even though I'm not. And so my weight ballooned like well over 350 at one point.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I have pictures. I'm going to save that because we'll have a program coming out soon to help you with that. But so for me, I hid behind that. And when I first started my business, did I look the way I wanted to? No, but I was determined to show up anyway. Yeah. And so I showed up and I ended up losing a ton of it. I lost almost half of that.
Wow.
And I did that. And so I still showed up. And so was I afraid what people were going to think of me? Was I afraid when I walked into rooms and people were like, well, if she's not healthy, how can she do this? Or if she doesn't have a college degree, how can she fix our company? Right. And you know what? I had to say to myself, if I was to be worried about what everyone thought of me, I would A, never leave the bed in the morning, and B, I'd probably be in the fetal position in a corner somewhere. But I was determined to say, you know what, I'm going to make up what I think about me. I'm going to stand firmly. I'm going to get my own confidence. And I know everyone has their own levels of confidence, but I just threw away the fact of I don't really give a care what anyone thinks.
Right.
It goes back to when I asked my mom that question of, do you think I'm pretty?
Right.
And she was like, what do you believe about yourself? And I remembered that in that moment. I said, I am going to be that. So I had to step into my own power.
Yeah.
And especially as my business, I was so afraid to work with business owners. And it wasn't until a friend said, your corporate job, they call you into the room to make the decision and to be the guiding consultant in the corporation. Why couldn't you create your own room to get into it? So that's the same thing for entrepreneurs. Why are you waiting for someone to give you the room to have the opportunity? I am all for go make your own room. Go get your own opportunity. Go make your own community. Go make your own brand. Yeah. There are people that need to know what you hear. So now when I talk with people, I'm like, I've been broken, busted. No problem. I've had to do the photo shoots, not feeling completely 100%, whatever. Yeah. I had to build up a business where I had zero money for Facebook ads and was able to close like 37,000 in sales in 90 days, which I know that's a small number for some people probably watching your platform. Yeah. But after you leave corporate in your first 90 days to be able to make that and then to be a target for 6 figures, I'm like, mama is happy. But then that triggers you to do more. So the biggest struggle I see people with is they're like, I want it to be perfect. I want it to be all lined up. There's no such thing. You've got to go for it, because when you go for it, there's something that triggers within you that you're going to make it happen. Yeah. But it's not going to happen in your comfort zone. You don't grow your skills on the couch. You grow them on the battlefield. And that means
my God, that's so true. That is so true.
Somebody hashtag and tag me in that.
I love that. That was awesome. So, like, and we're at the end of the hour now. And so I want to start wrapping up here. But LaDawn, first off, I want to say, like, you are incredible. Like, you're just amazing. And there are people, you can go back and read the comments later, but there are some unbelievable comments about you.
Thank you.
Randy Rowell says that, LaDawn, you are amazing. So, and you are, I agree with him. And so how can everybody follow you? Where would they find you?
Yeah, so you can connect with me on Facebook. You can also visit my website, acceleratemybusiness.org. You can connect with us there. We've got some great things that are going off. I'm about to launch a 5-part series next week about how to accelerate your business. Look, we're going to talk logistics, but I'm also going to share more of my story with you, because I think that's the biggest piece. And Ken, I thank you for asking about my story, because I actually just had a friend the other day was like, girl, you've got to share more of your story.
Yeah.
Because I didn't think people wanted to hear that. Like when you become a full-time business owner, you're so focused on the bottom line and number. Yeah. So I talk about, here's what I do, here's what I do, here's what I do. And then I start talking to people and they're like, I want to know more of your story.
Right.
So even as a strategist, we learn things on our own. So I'm starting actually to share more about my story. Hank Norman has been a huge influencer for me to be able to do that and to learn. Like he's sick. He's like sick in a good way. Like I adore the man.
I love him too. He's amazing.
Yeah, because he makes me uncomfortable to the things I have to do.
I know.
But that's where you learn and grow. And so there's going to be a lot more coming from me, a lot more about my story.
Good.
All to be able to help entrepreneurs. Because here's the thing. I know what it's like to not live the life you want, not just financially, but to be in those dark moments where you don't see yourself the way you should.
Right.
And the only way that I can stand confidently every day is because I've learned how to harness my own power, to stand confidently in that and unapologetically. And I don't say that to brag, but you know, if you've got the burning sensation that you got to do it, it's because there's people that you have to serve. And so once I understood that, it's not about you. It is about those that you're trying to serve. If my mentor didn't step out and do her business, I would have never had the strength to leave my job.
Yep.
If I didn't have people who told me, LaDawn, you can do this, I would have still been in a career. And when I left my job, I was so stressed out because of things on the job. So I could have stayed stressed out. I could have stayed on medications to help balance the stress I was in, or I could have made a decision to say, you know what, this isn't my life. I'm going to change it. And I did. And so it's possible for everyone. I'm not special. I just took action.
You're unbelievable. You really are.
Thank you, Ken.
That's it. Action. And facing all those fears. So, LaDawn, you are amazing. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you, Ken.
I can't wait to hear more about your story because you're just amazing. You're amazing. So,
it's coming.
I know it is, especially if Hank is your driving force. He's something else. So listen, everybody, make sure you follow LaDawn. And LaDawn, thank you so much for being on. And if you guys have any questions or need help in your business, you can reach out to LaDawn. She'll help you. So I don't think she'll help you for free, but she'll help you. So anyway, well, listen, thank you so much. And we will see you guys all tomorrow. Thank you for following the show. And to everyone who shared this out, thank you for the likes, the love, the laughing, cry faces, everything. So thank you. Thank you all. LaDawn, thanks again. I appreciate you being on.
Thanks, Ken. It's been an honor. Appreciate it.
All righty. All right. See you guys later.